today we're going to talk about Maria Montessori. And we actually have a couple of Montessori preschools in the area. If you are interested in getting more information, you can look them up. And there are Montessori schools across the United States. There are less than there were in the 50s, and I believe that is because, and your book will tell you, because the Montessori method has been used a little bit differently and more Americanized. And so it's not really traditional. You won't find a lot of traditional Montessori schools. But Maria Montessori was born in England. I'm sorry, in Italy. And she said that the greatest sign of success for teachers to be able to say the children are now working as if I do not exist. So we're going to talk a little bit of her life, but then we're going to go into her theories. And I've narrowed down her biggest 4 theories in this PowerPoint to environment, real tools, accessibility of materials, and then beauty and order. So Maria Montessori was born in Italy in 1870, and she went to medical school with a focus on pediatrics. She was the first woman in Italy to graduate from medical school. She was also very educated and came from very educated parents. She started her work in insane asylums, and then she realized that there was a problem with difficult children, that it had more to do with the adult approaches and expectations than it was with the children themselves. And so she started her own school. She started a Montessori school, and she took children out of the asylum, and then she also took children that were very poor off of the streets of Italy. She, let me just go back. So she created this school, and there were very, very young children, and some of the children had places to go, but their parents were so poor that they would go off to the factories to work, and the children were left alone. So a lot of times the children would find themselves going over to Maria Montessori school, where she provided them meals and she provided them education. And it was kind of like a little lab school for her. So some of the things that she has contributed to our field all came from her work in her school and the asylum that she worked at. And some of them were a well-prepared environment, child-sized furnishings, materials, and tools. So if you see if you go into a preschool and you see the seats are very low to the ground, that was not typical before Maria Montessori. There was no sizes of chairs. They were all the same size, and they were all adults. Sizes. And so she said children need to have their own materials and their own sizing furniture. So she made little couches, and she made little chairs and little tables, all to fit children. And it became kind of a cottage industry, and went from there. There's tons now of catalogs that have child-size furnishings, and that really came from Maria Montessori's work. She also had a lot of self-correcting and sequential materials. So a lot of the tools and toys from Montessori, and you can actually look this up, Montessori tools or Montessori toys. And you can see that they are sequential. They go in order. So a child that has mastered one toy then can go on to the next toy. But until they master a toy at that level for that particular skill that she wants them to learn, they may not go on to another toy. They have to completely master it, and then they can go in sequential order to the next. So building upon their prior knowledge. She also was a big a teacher. She believed in observation. She believed that watching children to learn what they needed. And she trusted in children's innate drive to learn. So another one of her theories is child-centered environment. So this is a typical Montessori classroom. If you notice, it's got a lot of wood furnishings, it's very natural and beautiful. Everything has a place. And the emphasis is on the preparation of the environment. So the teachers really prepare the environment for the students to come in to learn. They learn from sensory experiences and the environment. So there are quite a lot of sensory toys out there and sensory activities for children in the Montessori schools. Beauty and order in the environment applies to sights, sounds, textures, and smells. And then everything is child-sized furnishings, utensils, and tools in each of the classrooms. Here's an example of a real tool, and this is to learn how to screw this. This is using fine motor skills, right? Little hand movements. She wanted real tools that work. So she wasn't going to give you a plastic screwdriver and plastic bolts, because those aren't real life. And so she believed that children were competent and that they could actually use the right tools that that adults use as well, as long as it was child size and fully functional. And there's nothing more, if you think about giving a child, I don't know if you learned how to cut with scissors. If you ever learned from the scissors that were the safety scissors that barely cut, it's so frustrating to use those scissors on, even if you think of in your adult life, using a pair of dull scissors and it just doesn't cut. It's very frustrating. And so if a child's trying to learn a new skill like cutting and you give them scissors that don't work properly or are safety scissors, and so they're so hard to use, that's not a pleasant experience for children to learn, and they're not going to want to cut. And so she realized that children really needed to have real tools. She also believed that that we need to create beauty and order for their world. She believes that teachers should assess the environment and make sure that you are taking into consideration the space and not making it too crowded, not making it a lot more bare than what normal people, like what typically would be a classroom, would be a lot more bare. Some things on the shelves, but not overcrowding on the shelf. It needs to smell good. It needs to be in order. Everything has a place. Everything needs to be put back in the place so that children are competent and able to create order in their own spaces. And making sure that you provide enough resources to create these special environments, making sure you bring in greenery from outside, plants to brighten it up, to have a better smell in the air, something that needs to, if you have an area with diapers, that's away from the regular space so that it's not a smell that is in the air. She also believed that children are competent and responsible. So she believed that that we serve children too much, and that children need to actually do a lot of their own work, and they enjoy doing their work after themselves. And you can think of a child who is mimicking vacuuming after dad vacuums the living room and the child wants to do it themselves. Or mopping the floor, or setting the table, or doing those kind of chores that give us as parents a little bit of angst, because they might break our dishes if we ask them to set the table and they're 3, but it's something that they really want to do. Oh, one last thing in this is that she also believed that children need a lot of open-ended scheduling with large blocks of free time for work, so that they can really plan and go on these off of their ideas. If there was a study once that said that children, when they are in make-believe and they're going to do play, so say they're going to play house. You've probably seen children do this a million times. They're going to play house, and they create rules for themselves where they say, okay, you're going to be the dad, I'm going to be the mom. Okay, remember when we went that place last weekend? Pretend that we're doing that. No, last time we did that and she was the daughter last time, so she has to be the daughter this time. So they're setting up rules, and it takes them a approximately a half an hour, 30 minutes to set up the rules before the play actually begins. And so a lot of times, if you think about our preschool schedules, they are in blocks of 30 minutes. And so what happens if a child is given 30 minutes to free play and they're playing house, and the whole 30 minutes is spent creating the rules of how they're going to play house, and then they're done. They have to move on to the next activity that they're told to. So Montessori believed in giving them large blocks of time. She also allowed children to take responsibility. They want to help. Montessori tells teachers not to pull children away from projects they are interested in unless it is absolutely necessary. Plan your schedule and manage behavior through observation. That all of it can be done if you're watching children closely. I'm going to end with this is a desk. Montessori believes in observing children. Get to know children by watching them. Plan their curriculum by watching them. If we watch, Montessori suggested if we watch children carefully and reflect on those observations, we can figure out what the children need and what they are not getting from the environment. And I'm going to end with a story. In one of our preschool classrooms, there was a desk in the writing area, and it was really a gorgeous desk. Looked similar to this one, wooden desk, because we believe in using real furniture, just like Montessori said. And this desk was beautiful, and it had all of these writing materials in there, and envelopes to be able to mail, to write letters, and stamps, and a mailbox, and all these different materials. And the teacher noticed that the children were not using the writing area, and the teachers had spent a lot of time setting up this writing area, and the children just weren't interested in using it. And so by watching and observing the children that did go into the area and talking to them afterwards, she noticed that the children did not enjoy it because the desk was too high. So even though it was a really nice piece of furniture and we wanted to use real furniture, it wasn't child size. And so one of the teachers' husband came in with a saw and cut down the legs of the table, and after that the children were always in the writing area because they could now feel comfortable in a child size desk.